I'm not sure. All right. We are live and we should be shareable. To a thirsty world that needs us. Here we go. I'm sharing right now. The Raiders didn't play badly. They just didn't play well.
Well, unfortunately, I came up with this concept a few years ago. People are starting to catch on to it. You need to be able to close. You need to be able to finish the game.
And interesting.
And yeah,
there was some speculation from some writer because the quarterback and the main players, they didn't really play a snap during preseason. They thought maybe they should get a little bit of work in to knock some rust off in a game situation. I did see that. I don't think that was the problem. I think the problem was the offensive line sucks and the defense is okay. But that's just me.
Let's see.
So this was underneath my my bureau here. I don't think I need my vehicle registration from 2017. I think I can probably throw that away. I don't see that as.
Oh, Britt, you should save all that stuff. I do.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I don't.
And my ticket to see Big Boy from the band Outkast from 2018. I don't think I'm going to need that. I think that's going to be fine to throw away. All right, let's get rocking.
There we go. It's the Brad and Britt program show thing, and you're going to get a 33% better effort out of us today because we won't be doing 4 podcasts this week, only 3, so we can squeeze all of our effort from that 4th day, distribute it to the other 3 days, and you'll get a 33% better shot today than you will the rest of the week. So feel lucky. It's not, remember, less is more. Less is
more. You were the first one to say that.
I thought of that one. I think of a lot of these things that you hear now and you have no idea where they came from. All right. Boy, do I have a list. Woo!
All right. I'm ready for your list.
America held hostage day 2,245.
Okay.
Lindsey Graham pretends for the 10,000th time to, quote, stand up to Trump. The Queen's corgis and the King are looking for a place to live. Ted Budd says yes to a debate. What a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Don, lock myself up. I'd die for QAnon, said the guy. And he sure did. And so did the rest of his family.
Well, let's start with that one. That's intriguing. I want to do the QAnon story first because these guys, they percolate right beneath the surface. I think you and I, at the end of last week, were talking a little bit, I think, not on our cast about Michael Flynn, who was a huge progenitor of all of these QAnon thingies.
Yeah. And by the way, he's not the only one. There are a bunch of people, not of the stature in terms of being, couple star generals, who go around the country making speeches and having small town gatherings to keep this all going, to keep the fires burning. This isn't shit on the internet. This isn't that kind of, this is grassroots kind of subversion. And it's there. So now we go to Michigan.
Hello.
And we have a guy named Igor Lanis, Lanis. He's 53 years old, or was, of a city in Michigan called Walled Lake, Walled. Walled Lake, killed yesterday by the cops after he started shooting at them. He had a shotgun. Inside his house, the cops found his wife, Tina, shot 4 times with a handgun, and his daughter, Rachel, 25, shot in the back of the legs with a shotgun. She managed to call police, and she's still alive. Mr. Lanis killed the family dog, shooting it multiple times.
Well, that's
clearly the dog was a member of Dogs Lives Matter, and they were out of control and were never punished for it, and he was upset by that. The violence stunned his other daughter, Rebecca, who was at a friend's birthday party during the murder. Rebecca told the Daily Beast that Daddy became obsessed with QAnon and other conspiracy theories back in 2020, consuming huge amounts of online videos following far-right figures like the great Alex Jones. According to that daughter, this is the one that didn't get shot, Igor was a car designer with no history of violence. She described her parents as extremely loving, but Daddy changed after Donald Trump lost in 2020. He had a sense of reality, but then after 2020, when Trump lost, he started going down these crazy rabbit holes. He became obsessed and fascinated by QAnon and the idea that Biden stole the election. It's a very big contributor to what happened. His mental health worsened. He became drawn into the theories. He kept watching, and he was watching conspiracy theories about 5G cell phone towers. Well, those are real. Okay. I don't know what those are. Vaccines and the election. You could almost, that's almost a big three.
It is. It is. By the way, Walled Lake is only, I mean, you think it's it's only 34 miles north of this great university they have at Ann Arbor, Michigan, Brad.
He started to believe that world leaders were, in fact, alien lizard people in disguise.
Sure.
Rebecca said family members tried to pull her father out of his beliefs, but it was pointless to argue with him.
See, well, this is what I'm wondering. Let's stop for just a moment. If you have someone who is a trained psychiatrist, like your wife is, someone who has practiced for decades, correct? Or you have someone who's a therapist, psychologist. Has anyone ever been pulled back from this shit and rehabilitated? That's my question.
The answer is, it depends on how far down the rabbit hole you are. If you're to the point where you're not speaking to anyone or don't want to have any kind of discussion, we don't know about those people. We don't know about them. They're still out there, Britt, because we still know people for whom they're either still saying these things, still believe them, still writing about them on their websites.
What, a Greg Hunter at usawatchdog.com? If you'd like to see some insanity. Greg. I don't want to give him the hits on as far as the web. I mean, but you really should see the insanity. It really is crazy.
But yeah, Britt, of course, there are some people who have realized over this time, but it's not many, because remember, it's trying to think what it is. It's like a callus on the bottom of your foot.
Right.
The longer you let it go, the more, the thicker it might get, and more impervious it might be to cutting it down or smoothing it out. And it's a bad analogy, because in this particular case, you're talking about what cult behavior is. This is like asking, well, has anybody ever escaped Scientology? The answer is yes. We know about them. What's her name? The one that was on all the sitcoms.
Leah Remini.
Right. I mean, she's an example. But it's on the margins. They're on the fringes.
Well, you see these people now that they went to the January the 6th, 2021 storming of the Capitol, and then they get to court and they go, okay, I got a wake up call. I fucked up. I did this. I shouldn't have done that. I'm out.
Right.
And I don't know if they're saying that for the court's benefit or for the judge's benefit or whatever, but you're hearing some people say that. But it seems like when these people do this QAnon stuff, and again, if you fully start believing that there are aliens posing as or lizard people posing as world leaders. You know, that if that's something that you really buy into and you don't realize, oh, that's stupid, I shouldn't believe that.
I don't know. Taking a look at Boris Johnson's hair, I'm not quite sure they're off. But
see, if you really are able to like tell your family and your friends, no, listen, I know it sounds crazy, but look, it's real because of A, B, C, D. It connects here, and I've got the thing. I've got the bulletin board, the cork board with the strings attached and the thumbtacks, and it all makes perfect sense. It would be really tough to pull somebody back from the edge on that shit, and then eventually somebody gets hurt, like they did today, or like they did this weekend.
And I think you identified two different groups, two distinct different groups. The people who have been arrested, who have had to face this in court, where there's no wiggle room to just repeat the conspiracies or things. You're right. Most of them have just melted right there onto the floor and copped a plea. I don't know how many of them have on the other side of this. Some of them are in jail right now. Some of them are about to go to jail. And some of them may be out already. I don't know how many of them on the other side of this automatically say, how stupid I was to do that. How could I have done? I don't know that there are that many. And that's just a tiny subset of the millions of people across the country, like this guy in Michigan. Who bought into it. In other words, you don't have to have been in Washington on January 6th to go down the rabbit hole. You don't have to at all. We have ways of reaching everyone now, and you don't have to be there. So
you look at you look at situations where people are vulnerable, and you have to have someone who's vulnerable. They're in a bad spot in their life. Something has happened to them. These situations where in Germany, when the economy was so bad, so it was like, oh, I need somebody to blame. Oh, yes, this group of people and this group of people, they're going to be easy to blame. You're here in America, and you're not doing as well as Granddaddy and Daddy did. Oh, yes, these dark people over here, these are the people that I can blame, right? I mean, that you need that, right? You need some sort of sadness or badness or some sort of trauma in your life to kind of enter in so that people want to believe shit, don't you?
Well, maybe if you put them all in one long row, a continuum, there would be a lot of people like that over on one side. But as you keep moving towards the middle and towards the other side of this, there are a lot of people who are not in that position. Things in their life aren't necessarily they're not rebelling. They're not wanting to change the system. They're not wanting to tear it all down because their lives went haywire. They didn't get a break. They're poor. So it's you just can't say this. One thing about all of it. It's just not true. It's a big cross section of insanity, for lack of a better word here. So, but you're right. But you're half right. But it's important that you are right about when we see stories like this. And then if you reach all the way to the other side, like we were just starting to talk about here, then you have elected members of state governments, sometimes at the highest level. You have members of Congress, and you have senators who we know they know better. They know it was wrong, but they lie. And that just filters back down the continuum, back the other direction, giving all those people aid and comfort and an excuse to keep going on with what they're believing. I didn't run the story off, but I saw it over the weekend. That nut job, Louis Gohmert from Texas, congressman from Texas, apparently there was somebody who was just released from jail after doing 3 or 4 months. And as they got out, he gave them some kind of award.
Oh, here we go.
Or some kind of pat on the back. It was an official thing for him.
Right.
And he labeled that person, a hero to America or something. In other words, he gave them full, complete backing. He was on their side completely. They're patriots, blah, 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 blah. Are you looking that up right now? You're looking up Louis Gohmert? Check out Louis Gohmert right now. Go right now, but just put his name in. I'll bet you in 2 seconds it's the first story that'll come up from the last few days.
Republican Congressman presents convicted January 6th rioter with a flag flown over the U.S. Capitol after her release from prison.
Oh, yes. But by the way, I didn't remember that very important detail.
Yeah.
Yes. It's, by the way, can I just say it's an alleged flag that flew over the U.S. So when does Louis Gohmert have the ability to get one of the flags? And I didn't know there were so many of them that flew. No,
they do it like they do it like once a day or several times a day, so they can hand them out to Boy Scout troops and shit like that. But they weren't for people who like helped lead an armed insurrection against people and tried to kill Mike Pence. They weren't for people like that. I didn't think. I may be wrong about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what he's used. Dr. Gold is who he gave the person to. Dr. Simone Gold.
Oh, that Hadassah Gold. She's nuts. She's crazy. She's part of that doctors, freedom doctor bullshit group of complete nut jobs. Just off the charts crazy. Can I do something for just a? Can I? You know what? Hold on here. I think I'm gonna black my screen out for a second. Okay.
All right.
Hold on.
Brad's gone away. I don't know what he's doing. We might get one of those moments from Jeffrey Tubin in just a moment.
Okay.
Oh, they're there. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm fine. I had something between my back tooth and my second back tooth that I wanted to nudge out. I don't want to do it on camera because we have standards here. I don't want to be picking my teeth on camera.
Dr. Simone Melissa Gold received a JD from Stanford University.
I don't care where her degree is from.
She's not. She's an educator. Stanford is one of the finest institutions in America, and she's out there doing bullshit and leading insurrections. And then dipshit McGee over there from Texas ends up trying to give her an award. I mean, it's preposterous.
See, but that's the point. You can be that far on that side of well-educated, you know better, and you're buying into it or perpetuating it just as much as the poor schmuck in rural Michigan who just sat there in front of his computer and got sucked in and then killed his family, his dogs, and himself in the end. He'd ended up dying. So. That's a pleasant way to start, isn't it?
It is. Louis Gohmert received a BA from Texas A&M, beaten at home by Appalachian State this weekend, Brad.
Well, there you go. There's proof right there. What is he thinking?
Or some people would say Appalachian State. Let's do Ted Budd, because that's start local, stay local. Ted Budd has apparently agreed to a debate with Sherry Beasley, his opponent, in this fall's election for the United States Senate seat.
Now, this is the great thing. As of Friday, he was still saying no. He was still playing the no. I'm not doing it. And then finally, he kind of figured it out that he ought to get on board here. And of course, he then has to put out the I think the issues are on my side. I don't know that we'll do the broadcasters debate, but we're looking at options. And then he changed his mind. Shut up with this. Just shut up.
I thought you would have picked up on I don't know if it's his campaign or a PAC supporting him. I saw a anti Sherry Beasley ad, and there's
one that's running all the time now. I've seen it a million times.
So or the one you're thinking about, is it the one where she's behind a lectern and it looks like she's kind of dancing? That's what they've decided to highlight this.
Is it just another politician one?
Yeah, she's another phony politician, and I thought it was it's a slight bit racist. Going back to that there was a '90s meme among racists where they would have women in the Oprah audience kind of moving their necks around, and I thought it was kind of hearkening back to that kind of fantastic '90s racism that we used to see, right?
But boy, what does Ted Budd need to be? Very veiled in his racism, or should he just go all in and be like Jesse Helms?
I don't think subtlety works. I got to be honest, for the crowd that he's trying to get to turn out in November.
Yeah.
I don't think you can be too subtle. I think you got to really put it out there front and center. I mean, and I don't know for that crowd if a black woman is more scary or a black man is more scary for them. But
we're in an interesting spot here in North Carolina. I want to compare us to Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Because here in North Carolina, the Democratic Party didn't need to do what they're doing in a lot of places, in a lot of states, and governor's races. They're doing it in Senate races and sometimes even in House races, where in the primary, they either subtly or even less subtly get behind the Trumpiest candidate there is, under the idea that the most whack jobby candidate, the person who believes the election was stolen and Trump is still the president, and everything that Trump believes, even worse, get behind that person, because in a general election, voters are not going to elect the worst Republican out there. So you make sure that the worst Republican does become the opponent, and they're easier to beat than a more mainstream Republican who does accept that Joe Biden, for instance, is the president, and that the United States system of government shouldn't be completely dissembled, and the January 6th was an insurrection. You don't want to put those people up against you if you're a Democrat, because they're too reasonable. You want the crazies. All right. So we didn't need to do that in North Carolina, because Trump got behind the craziest of the Republican candidates who were in the primary, because it was Ted Budd. Yeah. It was Pat McCrory.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Who was was there a third person?
Mark Walker, the former congressman.
Mark Walker, exactly. And Ted Budd was by far the craziest of the three. And Trump endorsed him. And there was no tampering. There was no backhanded endorsement of him by Democrats. And so he's the nominee. And so you could argue, well, he's in a better position than some of these other crazy, wacky Republicans. And we'll use Pennsylvania as the example here. And I want to address what I hear is a very disingenuous attack on this strategy. And look, if it turns out that the worst candidates in these races, the Trumpiest candidates, end up winning the general election when they might not have otherwise even won the primary without Democratic support. In other words, if a football team could pick the shittiest team to play every week, well, they're supposed to beat that shitty team every week, right?
Supposed to, yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't work out that way.
No.
And so the criticism is that, okay, Democrats, be careful what you wish for. Hillary Clinton really wanted to run against Trump. She knew she could kill him, and look what happened. Well, I have a couple of arguments against that. Number one, none of these people are Trump. Not a one of them. Not one of them has, and excuse me for saying this, the political skills of Donald Trump to be a demagogue. None of them are close to him. He's the original. He's the original.
Yeah.
And if you're a Trump wannabe, well, you're a wannabe. You're not going to be him.
What's your second argument?
Well, my second argument is that this is it's a tactic. It's just a tactic that Democrats in certain races around the country have decided is a better way to go. Because if, for instance, and I'm going to use Pennsylvania again as the example, Doug Mastriano, who is running for governor against the incumbent attorney general, Josh Shapiro, a Democrat who by all measures has a couple of points lead. Some have him with a real wide lead.
Right.
Okay? And what if Mastriano wins? Well, if Mastriano wins, then the argument in favor of this strategy, even if it fails to boost the shittiest, Trumpiest candidate, if you lose to that shittiest, Trumpiest candidate, it's more likely for sure that you would have lost to the more mainstream Republican candidate had that candidate won the Republican primary. So they're playing the odds. That's what the Democrats are doing, because look at all the races so far that have been general election kind of races. And what's it, 5 for 5 that the Trumpiest candidate, the Republicans, have lost. So far, and again, it's not the general election, on election day in November. I get that. But I don't think it's a stupid strategy. And the disingenuous criticism of it is, and I swear I've heard this in many quarters, where they'll go, the Democrats say Donald Trump, Biden says he's a threat to democracy. He's a threat to democratic order. He's a threat to the Constitution. Then how come they're backing the Trump candidate? What are they doing that for? And they'll stop right there. They won't finish the sentence, as if they're pretending that Democrats really do want the Trumpiest candidate to actually win the election. They pretend that that's why support of, say, Mastriano up in Pennsylvania,
or Kerry Lake in Arizona,
exactly.
My argument is we will not be utilizing the Electoral College in statewide races. So that's why the Trump strategy is probably not going to be effective when it comes to North Carolina in a statewide race, or a Commonwealth-wide race in Pennsylvania. Or the reason that Donald Trump won the election in 2016 is because we used a fucked up system. He's never won the popular vote for anything. He'll never win the popular vote for anything.
You know what? By the way, that is kind of a little foundation underneath the defense of what the Democrats are selectively doing around the country. If you want what you perceive to be the weakest candidate as your opponent, just because this time it's a Trumpy candidate, this has been going on forever. This has been going on forever. Can you tell me the difference between this and when Republicans, and they just did it I know they did it in Florida in a couple of races, where they will secretly fund a third party candidate, a libertarian or somebody from the Green Party. They'll get behind them, so that if that Green Party or the more liberal than the Democrat gets on the ballot, that splits the Democratic vote and the Republican wins. Oh, but this is the worst thing ever. What the Democrats are doing right now, this is the worst thing ever. Bullshit. The hand-wringing and the fake outrage. You know what? When the Wall Street Journal editorial page calls out the Democrats for doing this, and wait, it gets better, Britt. It's why doesn't Joe Biden denounce this? I swear to God, that's the Wall Street Journal editorial. When they say that, that has about all the genuineness of this $3 bill I have in my back pocket. They're so outraged that their president, Joe Biden, isn't calling out his party. And Britt, if we've learned one thing in the last 2 years, last 3 years, really, every time you start to doubt Joe Biden's instincts, it turns out a few months later, he was right.
Yeah.
He just, it's amazing how that old fart who can't think, can't walk, and is actually, he's past death more than the Queen is, but nobody's told him yet, right?
Particularly since we're getting no fucks given Joe Biden now over the past couple of weeks. If you thought, the guy maybe 6 weeks ago would have been like, yeah, let me think about that and I might denounce it. There's no way this guy. We're in campaign mode. We're in no fucks given. I ain't taking no shit Joe Biden world now, guys. He's not going to be up there going, yeah, I lose sleep at night wondering if the Democratic Party should do that.
No, see, it's a fake, manufactured, right-wing Fox synthetic demand. Of why doesn't Joe Biden? No, you have no right to demand of him, and two, if he wanted to, he would.
That
and
sounds
number
like
three, he doesn't want to. Why should he? Because you know what? Guess what? Joe Biden beat the Trumpiest candidate ever. He's already beaten the Trumpiest candidate ever. So why would he?
He drank from the source. That's exactly.
So why would he get down and start beating up on Democrats in down ballot races for producing a lousy copy of what he was able to beat in the year 2020. So now, of course, look, if all these people win, somehow they all get in, well, okay, the strategy didn't work, but that doesn't mean the strategy was wrong, because had there been no strategy, then you would have had a more palatable Republican. All the votes that went to the right-wing Trumpiest candidate would have certainly gone to the Republican, and they would have gotten some crossover votes and more independents to vote for them. So I don't think it's a bad strategy at all. But apparently, Britt, it's not cool to say that. It's not in to say that. It's more important to pretend to be outraged by this. And even worse, it's more important to pretend to say to people that the Democrats are hypocrites for doing this, because they're campaigning for the Trumpiest candidates. And I heard proof of this today, that the strategy is working. And I'm going to try to describe this phone call that I heard. And, you know, I do like Michael Smerconish a lot. You know, he has a Saturday show on CNN. He has a Monday through Friday show on a Sirius 127, the POTUS channel from 9 to 12. And he's talking about this. And he last week played the game I was just talking about, where he pretends to be outraged that the Democrats, why are they pushing these candidates who are the Trumpiest candidates when they're playing with, okay, and he let people get away with it, and he didn't go any further. So on his program Monday, a guy calls up from the middle of Pennsylvania, out in the middle of nowhere, and he says, Michael, there are commercials all over the airwaves where I live. And this was prefaced by the fact that Mastriano has no money. He's getting no contributions. The Republican Party is not supporting him. He's cash poor because he's a nut. He's a conspiracy theorist. He's crazy. He's out of his fucking mind. So he's got no money. Josh Shapiro, the Democrat, the favored attorney general, is running ads. They're very subtle, but they just talk about the fact that Doug Mastriano believes that Donald Trump should still be the president. Doug Mastriano doesn't believe that you should be forced to take vaccines. In fact, Doug Mastriano says, my body, my choice. Yeah, for this. Or with abortion, my body, my choice. Screw that. So it's a very pro Doug Mastriano ad. And so this guy calls up Michael and says, he's got plenty of money. He's buying all these ads. He's buying all these ads. And Smerconish says, well, I've seen those ads too. He lives in Philadelphia. Do you know that those are not paid for by the Mastriano campaign? They're Democratic ads posing as pro Mastriano ads. Mm-hmm. And the guy paused. He didn't understand what was being said to him. He didn't understand that even exists, that can happen. Right. And wait, and Michael Smerconish, who I know is smart enough to know better, should have said right there, guess what? That means the strategy is working. If an ad that is boosting the worst characteristics of your opponent runs, and you think the opponent himself is running that, and you don't realize it, you're not sophisticated enough to know, and I don't think this guy was at all not representative of a lot of people, because what they see on TV in an ad, it must be true. It's in a TV ad. So to me, the strategy will work. Mastriano will never be the governor of Pennsylvania. It's not going to happen. We'll see. We'll see.
A couple of thoughts on this, because we the strategy, as you point out, people are it's a clutch the pearl situation. It sounds like a Peter Ducey kind of gotcha question to Joe. When are you going to denounce? Blah, you know, it sounds like and
absolutely.
And the thing about Joe Biden is, and he realizes we're not using Marcus of Queensberry rules anymore. We're just not. You got to kind of do different things. And Superfan Jeff points out, you might remember this, the 2010 Senate race between Jim DeMint and Alvin Green, who no one had ever heard of, who was nominated by the Democratic Party to be their nominee. And DeMint wins that race by about 61.5% to 27.6%. 6.5% for this Alvin Green guy. That was another thing that where the Republicans were kind of putting this guy up there as a Bobo doll for Jim DeMint to win in that race. You'll also remember,
but the point is made. This is not a new strategy.
No.
When it's done selectively by the worst people in the country, Republicans, guys like Jim DeMint, who was just a fucking lowlife.
He was
the worst.
He was horrible.
Was the worst. And that was one of his techniques. This is out in the open. And here's the, as with this phone call or just some Merconish, it doesn't matter if it's out in the open. They still don't get it.
There was a situation. We had a situation in that 2014 Senate race. I believe, wasn't that Elaine Marshall as the Democratic nominee in 2014 taking on Tom Tillis? Was that how that worked in 2014? I do remember there was a
Kay Hagan.
Was it Kay Hagan? Okay. I apologize to Kay Hagan because she was the incumbent. The Republicans actually promoted through a PAC. It was an ad for a guy named Sean Haw, a libertarian candidate, and they were trying to split the vote. They bought ads saying "Get high, get Haw." Do you remember these ads? Because we actually interviewed the guy.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up because we just mentioned there is going to be a debate in North Carolina. Sherry Beasley, and Ted Budd. There is a third and or a fourth party candidate. I'm not sure what kind of support level they have, and the question was already: are they going to be involved in this debate? And of course, at this point, we don't know. We're not sure.
So Sean Hall had these ads that were purchased about it was "Get high, get Haw," as if he's going to legalize marijuana. Those ads were not paid for by the Haw campaign; they were paid for by Republicans. I think it was specifically a PAC that was trying to split the vote.
Britt, it's different this time. This is worse. This is way worse, Britt. Don't you? Have you no idea the difference? Come on.
We just mentioned a gigantic asshole from South Carolina by the name of Jim DeMint. Let's talk about another asshole from South Carolina by the name of Lindsey Graham, Brad.
Yeah.
Transitioning to the Lindsey Graham story as he continues to run his mouth, make headlines, and be in some legal trouble.
Where we got this one? We got somewhere. Not there. We'll get it. We'll find it. There it is. There we go. Well, I take that back. There it is. Got it.
All right.
A couple days ago, I guess it was last week, Trump went on some I've never heard of show and said that he would offer the full pardons to everybody who was convicted of activities on January 6th, which, again, to me, this is akin to, I like people who don't get shot down. Exactly. It should end this campaign, but of course it doesn't. So here comes Lindsey Graham now, who said that promise to pardon everybody is, quote, a bad idea. Pardons are given to people who admit misconduct, rehabilitate themselves. They're not supposed to be used for other purposes. He added that granting these pardons would only reinforce violence. Well, of course, there's 9 things wrong with that sentence, because if you go through the list of pardons that Trump gave to people like Steve Bannon, okay, yeah, there's a guy, according to Lindsey Graham, who admitted misconduct and rehabilitated himself. So that's why Trump gave him a pardon. Lindsey Graham is just the most pathetic human being ever. And during this appearance on that radio show, I'm sure that the host then said, but if Trump was the nominee, would you vote for him? And of course, Lindsey Graham would say, naturally, I would.
Of course.
All right. So other Senate Republicans who are pretending to be fake outraged, along with Lindsey Graham, include Kevin Cramer of North Dakota, Mike Rounds of South Dakota, 2 of the who the fuck are these guys kind of senators. John Thune, who's also from South Dakota, he's one step above who the fuck is he, because he's been around long enough and looks like a matinee idol, so he gets that. If people broke laws, they need to be held accountable. Mitt Romney said what happened on January 6th is an attack on the temple of democracy, and that Trump's comment on pardons were grossly inappropriate. Mitt Romney does get to say that because Mitt Romney voted to convict. Okay. Mitt Romney voted to convict in the impeachment hearings. Two Republicans who are pausing on the question. Here you go. Let's go to the top of the heap here. Josh Hawley of Missouri and Ted Cruz, who say there needs to be a separation between those who were violent at the Capitol and those who were peacefully protesting Biden's election. People who are getting convicted, charged and convicted, were not charged with peacefully protesting Biden's election. They did something physical on that day. So that's a complete fake. That's a lie. That's a dodge.
Well, these are the same people. These are the same people during the protests in the summer of 2020 after George Floyd was murdered. These same people would put those folks in two categories too. The folks that broke the windows in Portland, they would be like, well, there were some people that were peacefully protesting, and then there were just some people who were violent. I'm sure those same people would make that distinction, correct?
850 people have been charged in the January 6th attack. 25% of them have gotten sentences. Median prison term is all of 45 days. And this is kind of outdated stuff, so I almost don't want to, but I'll do it. This is from last summer. 300 cases, 70 to 27. It doesn't mean anything. All right. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
So there you go. Yeah. So you're going to pardon everybody and the rest. So let's stay in the same neighborhood. Trump's lawyers went for, I would almost call it high comedy today, because they told the judge down there in Fort Pierce, Aileen Cannon, that when the Justice Department answered back that they wanted to at least keep going with investigating the hoarding of the documents, they're using this phrase. This is just too stupid. Here we go. The investigation of the 45th president, these are Trump's lawyers, is, quote, both unprecedented and misguided in what is at its core. You ready? Are you sitting down? Are you holding your chair? It's a document storage dispute that has spiraled out of control, and that the government is wrongfully seeking to criminalize the possession by the 45th president of his own presidential and personal records. That's right. It's a new day for euphemisms in America, isn't it? If you thought legitimate political discourse was good to describe the January 6th riots, I think the Republican National Committee pulled that one out of their ass, then document storage dispute is right up in there. If you buy into that, then I stand by my characterization of bank robberies can now be just called currency possession disagreements. And you can extend this to just about everything. The assassination of John F. Kennedy was a stray bullet incident. You can homogenize anything if you want to. It's not a document storage dispute, because first of all, it was a criminal theft, and there is no dispute over that. So it isn't a question of after you steal the money and you have it hidden in your basement and the cops say, bring it out. And you say, all right, I'll bring it out. Here's half of it. And then you keep the other half of it. That's not a dispute over the storage of the money. I mean, there's 100 ways you can analogize this. And it's just, these are the worst lawyers ever. That's all I can say. They're not even good in their creativity.
Who was it?
If you pay big money ones, they can be a little bit more creative, but there's no creativity possible here because he did it. He's guilty. And the only thing you can do is just make up shit and hope some stupid judge that Trump appointed will keep buying into this at a certain level and help you run the clock out, which in the case of Trump, it's till the day he dies. That's the clock for him, right?
Who was it who said that? Somebody said on TV this weekend, there's a difference between being a lawyer and like playing a lawyer on TV. These guys are not even good at either one. Somebody said that on one of the shows this weekend.
These are all lawyers who look like they got all of their legal training by watching Law and Order. I take that back. Had they watched a lot of Law and Order, they might be better. they might be better than this because you can learn stuff from.
Well, let's finish up with the Queen's corgis as they mourn the passing of Queen Elizabeth II in Great Britain, Brad.
Yeah. All right. So she had two of these little corgis, and Prince Andrew, and it's Sarah Ferguson, who, by the way, they've long been divorced, but she still lives. She still lives in the same place that he does. But I guess these places are so big that it doesn't really matter. You can be on the other side of the house and never have to deal with anything. I think that was part of their divorce settlement, that she got to stay there. Anyway, so they're adopting the two queen dogs. They get a hold of the dogs and off they go. Now, as for Prince Charles, now King Charles, he is, the real estate market right now, it is a buyer's market, isn't it? Things have changed very, very quickly, right, with these high mortgage rates. So he may be able to really snag himself a good deal, but apparently he hates that gigantic Windsor Castle. I guess that's not where it would be, Buckingham Palace, right? You ready for, I'm looking at the magazine House Beautiful. Remember that? Your mom used to get that when you were a kid. You couldn't believe that. Why is that? Right. It's still around. 775 rooms, 19 staterooms, 52 royal guest bedrooms, 188 staff bedrooms, 92 offices, and 78 bathrooms. God almighty. Imagine how much Comet cleanser you got to buy for that shit. Got a post office, a movie theater, a swimming pool, like a whole medical surgical unit in there, a jeweler's workshop in case your watch needs a battery.
Good God.
It's the largest private garden in London, a tennis court, a lake, and a helicopter pad. But he may not want to live there with his. Now, what they're calling it, is she the queen consort? Is that what her official title is?
I don't know these titles. I
thought it was the queen's concubine.
That's terrible. How dare you?
I'm sorry. He's been in love with her for a long time, even before Diana. So it's not fair. And we wish them well. We hope they continue to have a lot more children.
Yeah.
They've been undergoing a rehabilitation project for not his. You know what? He looks a lot better as a 73-year-old guy than he did when he was 18. You remember what a geek he looked like when he was a kid? Oh my God.
Sure.
You would have beaten the shit out of him if he didn't have, all this royal protection around him. What a geek he was. But now he looks like a very distinguished, kind of a good-looking old guy. So they've been rehabilitating Buckingham Palace for 10 years. 10 years, but he may not want to live there. But so I'm thinking, hey, Airbnb, this could be their ultimate. It'd be like $1 million a night, right? If the way they price stuff, it'd be $1 million a night. But you know what? There'd be people that would do it. There are people that would do that if they could, and there are people that could afford that. I'm sure. Wow, it's kind of cool.
Have we figured out if Trump has tried to horn his way into the funeral?
He's not. There's not even remotely possible.
Yeah, I'm not hearing much discussion of it at all.
No. I mean, Biden, the president, and Joe, but they're going, and apparently, even that was a numerical squeeze because it's not an unlimited number of seats and anything. And there's a Westminster Abbey where they'll be doing it, but he's in. And no, it was kind of impressive though. That very first day, all of the former prime ministers of Britain were right there in the front row. And because, they change prime ministers like you change your socks in Britain. There are like about 9 of them. And they're all still alive and they're all vital. And I think, well, look at us. How many presidents do we, Jimmy Carter is still alive. He's very old. Then you have Bush and you have Clinton and Obama. And that's it. Mm-hmm. That's all.
And Trump.
That's really all there is. But Britain, they get all. Yeah, man, they got a full lineup. They got got a whole starting offensive team there. That's kind of the difference in our two systems.
Well, I think John Major is actually dead. They just haven't told him. Maybe.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Got it.